Hey everyone, this is Grumpy Gay Guy Cosplay and Crossplay. What I am doing, or rather what I will be doing, is making tutorial videos for beginner cosplay makers made by a beginner. And hopefully our ultimate goal can be being experts one day. Now, my friend Maybe Cosplay and I both decided to break into making our own cosplay only over the summer, and it is only November, so we have not been doing it that long. We both have taken great pains in deciding which one to start with, which anime slash video game to start with. We thought about doing Mass Effect first. All of the characters, one or a few characters from there, and that did not work out. As a beginner, do not take on a project that involves latex and plaster molds and everything like that. So instead, what we decided to do, since it seemed much easier, is Sailor Moon. I chose to create Sailor Mars, and Maybe Cosplay decided to make Sailor Pluto. Well, she made like all of the Sailor Scouts because other people were cosplaying with us. So she has much more experience at this than I do. What I will be doing in this video, instead of making the tutorial, I will be showing what I did with the pattern and how it got to what it is now, which is not the best. This is mostly a what not to do video for Sailor Mars or any of the Sailor Scouts. Now, to begin, I got myself some of this fusible interfacing. This stuff is great. Make sure you have tons of that on hand, always and forever. I didn't use it for all of the parts that it said to use it for because I wanted some of them to flutter. Like, I didn't use it on the butt bow because it needs to droop, and the fusible interfacing kind of prohibits that a little. Now, I didn't enter a competition this year, but because I'm still just a beginner, I'm waiting until my skill gets much better. What I did do was went to the store and bought myself a one-piece swimsuit. And yes, it actually works. I didn't think it would, but now you're going to say, no, this isn't Sailor Moon, but it's worth it to spend like $10 for a pattern. Speaking of that, I did go out and buy the Simplicity, whatever this pattern is. I don't think these patterns have a name, they just have a picture. I bought that, and I will do a tutorial video on that, but that's another video much later. Instead, what I did was I took this, folded it in half, and outlined it, and it does work. The thing is, you have to choose your fabric very carefully. And that size works for me, and that shape works for me. The only problem is you need a fabric that stretches, and the fabric that works best for that is like $20 a yard at Joann Fabrics. I did instead, just to practice it, went and bought like $1, like it was a $2.99 regular fabric, and it was on sale for like $1 a yard, and I got like a whole big bunch of it, and it looks like a leotard. It would work if only it stretched, because there's no stretch. Although I did find, what I did was, instead with this, was decided to do a stitch test, which I wanted to see how well my sewing would hold up in the wash, so I just washed it randomly, just to make sure it didn't fall apart, because that's the last thing you want, especially if you're doing crossplay. You don't want anything to fall off and anyone to see anything. That simplicity pattern that I just showed you, it has, I would say you need to alter the pattern, because the way it has it doesn't quite work, and I will make a video on altering it some, touching up the pattern a little bit, because they have the corset top piece and it looks something like this when it's done. Like it's 4 separate pieces, and I think you can do it with a little less, and the shape is right, it's just the length is not right. So they're basically having you make a leotard with like 20 different pieces, and I'm going to look for other ways to do that. So again, that's a what not to do. Cutting out steps is a big necessary if you do this, because you will spend a lot of time on a lot of the pieces. So you want to find ways to cut out as much as possible. Now, there are 2 different kinds of bows. Maybe Cosplay found one. I will link it. It's somewhere on the internet. And when we find it, I will link it. We had it, and then we printed it out like 1,000 times, and then it just got, the link got misplaced somewhere. But we did a side-by-side. I'm going to do a side-by-side with that bow, and I will link it once we find it, which it's in this little Ziploc baggie, so it's all neat and organized. I'll use these to organize everything, including the pattern and scrap fabric. So this one isn't done. This one is, I cut out for a tutorial for the random bow pattern. And again, you can alter it, of course. You can do anything you want. So it does have like a billion pieces. Not really, it's only got 4. It has the front bow, or the front part of the bow. Oh, I lied, 6 pieces. It has the back part of the bow. And, of course, the iron-on interfacing. So, once you get all that together, it should look something like this. Which mine has, it's not been sewed yet, so like, it has not been sewed yet. The knot is the middle piece, middle 2 pieces. I decided to use 1 piece of fabric for the knot. Now, as you can see, this is not very big, and the Sailor Scouts require them to be like much bigger, so you will have to alter this pattern as well. And that's one of the reasons maybe Cosplay and I are doing these videos, to help other people like us know how to, or help other people like us understand and know how to alter patterns from a beginner's point of view. Also, if you are like me and a man doing crossplay, one thing I recommend, I found on Etsy, you can probably make them yourself. I'm going to attempt that too. Just to get it out of the way, I use this. It's foam, flexible foam. Buy like 5 sheets of that and you'll be good for a bunch of different things. In fact, some cosplayers use that for armor. Now I am missing my other... Well, I lost a boob. I misplaced one of my boobs, but on Etsy I found this. The woman again, I will link it. The woman sells them in different sizes and, of course, different colors. She will paint them for you, but I got white because I originally intended to do Liara from Mass Effect, and she is blue, but I also wanted to be able to use it for, say, some anime or any video game that is not a blue alien from Thessia. I will link these. There are others that I'm planning on getting too. You can never have too many pairs of boobs. Now, as for my Mars, here is that bow from the pattern. Whoops, I lied earlier. This is the Simplicity pattern bow, not the bow from that pattern we lost. This is the one that I chose, as you can see, with the interfacing and everything. It looks much, much better. And yes, I forgot to glue the gem on. Now, there are apparently 1,000 different ways to do the cape. Mine has a bunch of oopsies. I made like 3 oopsies. I stitch ripped it, sewed it back on, and then it just instead of recutting it, I just made myself my own piece of hem tape from leftover fabric. And if you don't know hem tape, that's this stuff right here. Most people use it for like quilting, like, oh, see, quilt binding. But you can use it for anything. And I used it. Unfortunately, I forgot to change the thread from white to red. And now there's just this white line, so the hem tape was almost pointless. Snaps, snaps, and more snaps. That's all I have to say. Snaps, snaps, and more snaps. Learn to sew snaps. This was very challenging because I did not know what I was doing, and I can admit that freely. I admit completely that I had no clue what I was doing with this. That's why I'm making the videos. This piece... Look, I found my favorite sewing needle. Anyway, this, I will do a tutorial on it. I like the sleeves, but I don't... Honestly, it's much better if you choose to do a Sailor Scout that does not have the sleeves, because not all of them do. Also, this was not the best fabric choice because it sheds. Like, see, there's red flickies that I have to keep pulling off. So another what not to do is choose the silky, sheeny type of fabric. I would use something more plain. This was pretty, the top was pretty straightforward from the pattern. The skirt, however, I did alter. Oh, I also found my other boob. The skirt was a different story. I did take a couple liberties on that. This was when I decided to say, screw it, you know what, I'm altering the pattern because it needs altered. That bow, the butt bow, was exactly the same size as the front bow, and if you've watched the original Sailor Moon or Sailor Moon Crystal, those bows are ginormous. Like, they flow and flutter in the breeze and all that, and so my butt bow for the skirt is like 10 times bigger than the pattern allows. I had to alter that. And it is sewn on because, well, where else would you wear like a sheeny, short, silky red skirt like this? One thing I have gone back and forth about letting it droop or sewing it to the hip roll. I decided not to sew it yet because I thought that maybe it should droop just because it looks a little better doing that. I will do a tutorial about how I did that too, or how I altered the pattern. And of course, it's much better if you iron. It looks so much better. So just iron it to get out all of the wrinkles and let it. For the bow, I do recommend this silky, sheeny fabric. I will find out the name of it eventually. Now the pattern calls for both the skirt. Well, the skirt is two pieces in two different layers, so it's 4 pieces, but I cut out one of the layers, so it should be 2 pieces. It is the left and right side. Well, the pattern is the front and back of the skirt, but instead I kind of rotated it and made it the left side and the right side. Also, the hip roll itself is supposed to be one piece, but to make things easier on me and my life, I decided to cut it in half. And, of course, put a snap. Snap, snap, snap. And I felt that, it just makes it a little better. What I wanted to do, but I ran out of time, was sew a series of snaps, so it's sort of like a belt, and you can adjust, how tight or loose it is. So that way, like, if you do this cosplay 2 years in a row and you either gain or lose a whole bunch of weight, then it wouldn't matter, because you can just adjust the size. I also like the fabric that I chose for the skirt hip roll because it stretches, and that's what you want. Although I believe maybe cosplay took a different approach to that. Also, one thing never do is never use Sharpie to mark the pattern. I used it to mark the halfway point. Also, I staggered it. Here's the front and back, and you can see the seam of the skirt. This is the front left, I guess, and this is the front right to back. I cut the hip roll in half, and then halfway in there, where you see that dot, about where that is where I sewed the skirt in half, so that it's not just one seam in half. Another what not to do, this video is full of them, is the gloves. Don't use the silky, sheeny fabric for the gloves. I like what Maybe Cosplay did, but I don't like it. It is a great idea and it really works, although I would like to have the hip roll or the glove rolls attached. What Maybe Cosplay did was she made the rings in a stretchy fabric separate, as a complete separate piece than the gloves themselves, and these are just random gloves I bought at Spirit Halloween. These I made myself. I got string, rope type string. I didn't fill it with stuffing. Also, as for stuffing, a lot of that can get really expensive really quick, so what I recommend is finding a small cheap pillow. I spent $5 on a huge ass pillow, and it is not, I barely dented the stuffing inside it for all of this. There's ginormous shoulder rolls and the hip roll, and I could probably do 20 some different Sailor Scouts in there. Also in here, another version of this was supposed to be the butt bow, but it is obviously too small. This is that pattern that we found online that we lost the link to. This, I think, just looks so much prettier than the Simplicity pattern. I will, when I find time, full-time college student here. When I find time, I will work with the pattern, see if it is better. Apparently, the simplicity pattern does work best if it's with longer pieces. So I will, in another video, show all of that. And lastly, I have the leotard that I used. I got this, or maybe Cosplay got this from the internet. It is just almost no different than the one-piece swimsuit that I showed you earlier. It is almost exactly the same except for a few pieces that are not on here. And it works just fine. I wanted to be able to use this for different cosplays, so I didn't want to alter it in any way. Maybe Cosplay decided to sew snaps onto it so that the hip roll would attach itself, but maybe when I get better at cosplaying. Sorry, kitty cat in the way. Cosplaying is difficult with pets, by the way. Creating a cosplay crafting is difficult with pets. So that is all I have for this video. Maybe Cosplay and I will be posting video updates on a regular basis, hopefully. We are hoping to go to a convention and enter a contest in January. Wish us luck. We are taking on different cosplays. We're going to redo the Sailor Moon costumes so that we have the better experience, but also we want to break into other cosplays. I'm thinking about taking on Liara from Mass Effect 1 because it's just a simple green robe. Also Nisana Dantius, and yes, those are both Asari from Mass Effect because I love the Asari race. Also, Nisana's is a very generic. I think the Counselor Tabos also wears that robe. It's things that are really simple that'll get you some experience in sewing. Try some new techniques. It's a simple project where you can do risky things or take risks. After that, I would like to do Liara from 3, which is a very, very difficult undertaking. That's about it. Thanks for watching and sticking through the whole 23 minutes. I will update you soon. Grumpy Gay Guy out.